Great Adventures, everybody. I'm Melissa Bonsack, and welcome to episode 39 of Books Cubed, the show where I chat with indie authors you should be reading. It is Thursday, August 8th, 2019, and I'm sorry about last week. I had to leave town suddenly, and I did not have a chance to get the show ready to finish up part 2 of my chat with Merri Maywether. So that's what we have this week. And we continue our talk about writing small town romance. And she talks about what it's like when you're in a very small town and your neighbors are part of your books and they know it. So that was fun to chat with her about. I was really interested in how her neighbors felt about being immortalized in her books. So we chat about that, and I'm sorry that I'm so chatty in this episode. I cut some of my yak out, but I left some of it. So sorry about that. We're gonna get right to it. And let's see, do I have anything interesting to add? I have a new desk chair. I'm so excited about it. You can kind of see it behind me there if you're watching on the video, just a little bit of it there. It's a nice leather desk chair. It leans back a little bit, so it's a little uncomfortable trying to lean forward to the mic, but I think I'm worried too much about it. I think it probably sounds okay. I did a test and it seemed to sound okay. Let's see, what else? I think that's pretty much it. Let's get to Merri, and I will see you afterward. When you sit down to write, you got all these books. How long have you been actually writing novels?
I think I'm looking for a book to see
the date.
Yeah, because what happened is Let the Games Begin was a NaNoWriMo project.
I love NaNoWriMo, yeah.
And I finished the 28th. So I finished 2 days early. And then the very next day, I went to sleep exhausted, and I woke up the next day and I had the whole plot for The Chance to Win Her Heart.
Oh, nice. I wish I could go to bed and wake up with a plot.
and I outlined it, and of course the characters take over.
Yeah.
And so that I'm more of a planster. I do an outline, and then like the book I'm working on now, it went right instead of going straight. And so I forgot the question.
Oh, I did too.
And so the point is, I'm a planster.
How long have you been writing? That was it. How long?
So 2015. So
3
years?
years?
4 years.
4 years?
Yeah,
so that's pretty good. So you got a dozen books in 4 years, and I have 1.5 in. I published the first book in 2017, and so I was hoping to have the next one out that year. Oh no. Here it is. What year is it? 2019. So at least the next 2 will be out this year.
Yeah.
So that's something, I guess.
And see, I'm a teacher, so I figured this out for that NaNoWriMo. Writing is hard. Writing is hard, and it's everything they say. It's your blood, it's your guts, and you wake up in the middle of the night and you have to get up and write it, or you're going to forget it. And I had to actually, through that book, I had to watch motivational videos on YouTube. Like I was like Rocky of the writing. But then when I faltered, I would say, well, what do you say to your students? Because I wasn't teaching at that point in time. And by like 40,000 words in, I'm like, dang, I'm a witch. I was like, I'm hard on those kids. And I wanted to go back and go, sorry, guys. But that's how I get it done is, okay, what would you say to your students? And I'm encouraging, I'm not mean, but I am relentless.
You got to be, because this is our business. And part of my problem was that I used to live in Key West and sit at the computer and write, go on a small bar crawl. which of these things should I do? So I wrote a blog. I have a blog that I wrote in Key West, and I'll put the link in the show notes if you're going to Key West, because I've got some really cool pictures from 2 years of Fantasy Fest. And Fantasy Fest happens, it used to happen in August, I think. I think it's now September. And it is just a crazy time. The island is just filled with like 80,000 people or 40,000. I don't know. I can't remember now. It's a huge number. The island like tips to one side. There's so many people. And I know there was one night that my friend Lee and my friend's a professional photographer, and he wanted to come down. When we
Mhm.
moved to Key West, we had people booking time to stay at our house that we hadn't seen in years.
Mhm. So no.
Oh, hey, I love you. No, I'm just kidding.
Mhm.
No, so so our friend Lee, I was so excited to have him come for Fantasy Fest. And at 2 a.m, we're in the middle of the street, and there are people in latex getting out of a latex party, and there's a toga party getting out, and there was another party too. And just everywhere you looked was an unusual, odd mix of people just kind of meshed together, including this guy that every year goes, and he's got this sign about how everyone's going to hell because of Fantasy Fest, and repent now. And then everybody will pose with this guy to take pictures. I feel really bad for him. But he's, I guess, a good sport. Um, but anyway, so the blog is called twistofkeylime.blogspot.com. I think
Mhm.
that's it. So that's what I did mainly. I mean, I didn't work on my book like I should have. I wrote like 3 chapters in the 2 years that I was there. Mainly I drank. And I love rum. Oh my God, I love my rum. My husband worked in Colombia, and so
Mhm.
he would commute. We lived in Key West, and he would commute to Colombia for 6 weeks, and then he'd come home for 4, and we would drink while he was home. And then when he was gone, I would drink with my friends when I was supposed to be writing instead. So that wasn't good. So it's really good that he retired outright and we moved to Wisconsin. We're the only people in the history of civilization that left a paradise island when they retired. Um,
Mhm.
I just shake my head still that we did this, but it was great because we got to live with family that we didn't get to see very often, and we got that small town experience. So
Mhm.
that was really fun, and I think that's what drew me to your books. Uh, um, my mother's family comes from small town. They were farmers,
Mhm.
and after her dad died, her mother stayed in the little town, and then she lived in another little town for, I think she was there 25 years, and she was still considered an outsider. If you know anything about small towns, I mean, that
Mhm.
is so small town.
Mhm.
25 years and she was still an outsider, but it was a great little town. And I think that as I was reading your book, I was thinking it just makes me think of Anagon. It makes me think of St. Mary's where she lived, and it makes me think of North Dakota to an extent. We lived on the base outside of Grand Forks, which was a small town in itself,
Mhm.
you know. And then the town itself was a little bit bigger, but it was still that small town. And I got to say, a big shout out to anybody from Grand Forks. Fantastic people. So often, for some reason, I got stuck in the snow a lot. I had a big old van, and despite the fact that I had kitty litter and a shovel and your floor mats, if you get stuck, you can take your floor mat and jam it underneath your tires to get
Yeah.
out. And I've done that to get out of mud before, or take kitty litter and pour it in, or shovel the snow. But every time I got stuck, it was always somebody from the town who pulled over, not
Mhm.
somebody from the base.
Mhm.
And I thought, that's really interesting, you
Mhm.
know? Yeah, and but it was a small town. I remember being when we first moved there, we were in the gas station, and this guy was complaining about it being a small town. Oh, I just hate this town. I hate the people. And I said, oh, you said they're so mean. I said, do you tell the people you hate their town? uh, I said, well, I would recommend not doing that because then they're probably going to be mean.
Do you tell?
So yeah, it's yeah. But it was, I think your books drew me to just that nostalgic
Oh, I'm
feel,
glad.
of the small town. And Key West was a small town. The locals all knew each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I live in the eighth largest city in Florida now. It's hard to believe, except when I'm sitting at a stoplight that takes 10 minutes to finish. So I'm on the treasure coast of Port St. Lucie. Port St. Lucie. I'm in Port St. Lucie. Oh God, please don't come and kill me. So
You know what? I
nobody's
think
stalking me, I'm sure.
the nearest stoplight is 100 miles away,
Oh my gosh. Oh
and
my
if
gosh,
there's that's
really?
one.
Wow. It takes I to go to where I write, the Starbucks where I write is 3 miles away,
Mhm.
and it still can take me 15 minutes to get there because of traffic. And trying to turn left out of my subdivision, it is crazy. Just
Whoa,
crazy.
whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, that days like that make me think, oh, maybe, maybe I need to move to a smaller town. And my husband and I go back and forth. We talk about moving somewhere um, north of here. We've looked at some little towns on a lake, something on a lake, because we like the water.
Yeah.
I'm near the beach, but I never go. We never go unless there's a rocket launch. And then we go stand on the beach and watch the rocket launch. Cape Canaveral is about 81 miles as the crow flies. So
Okay.
when they set off a rocket, when Elon Musk set that car off with a person
Oh,
in it, we watched
SpaceX.
the heavy rocket lift off, and it was it was when it was dark out, and so it was like the sky just came afire. It was just fantastic to watch.
Hmm.
It felt like, and I really wish we'd been a little closer, but I didn't want to drive all the way because a lot of times they'll scrub the launch at the last second. And
Yeah.
I can see him from here. So I'm going to, I'm going to just hang here and do that. Okay, so people can find you on your website, www.merrimaywether.com.
Hmm.
And they can find you on Amazon if they look up your name. And I will have links in the show notes
Hmm.
for everybody who didn't write that down fast enough. If you're listening on the podcast, please don't start typing on your phone, but especially if in Florida, because we now have a no texting law. So you got to be careful about that. Even at a stoplight, they will still give you a ticket and wag their finger at you and maybe take you to jail. Who knows? So you want to be careful about that. Yeah, it's about time. I wish that the whole country had anti-texting laws. The phone should be in your purse or, in the
Those out here.
console. Yeah, it needs to be out of sight. Unfortunately for me, I can never know where I'm going. So my phone has the map on it. And
Hmm.
then sometimes I put it in the little thing so I can glance over at it, but usually it goes into my ears. I have
Hmm.
cochlear implants, so it goes into my implants and then I can hear turn left at. That was
That's
making me
awesome.
crazy. I was reading a book a couple weeks ago and it got to this steamy part and all of a sudden, turn left at. I'm like, no! Ah! So,
You know what was so cool was when I drove down to Arizona, um, it was the Glen Canyon Dam. And I remember what it was. It was Prince, right?
yeah.
And so um let's go crazy. And it's the crescendo at the end where it goes big and it goes wide. And
Yeah.
there's the pause before the crescendo, and then you get the symbols and right in that pause, Google Maps says, "Welcome to Utah." It was awesome. And then Prince comes back.
Oh, that's great. People can go and they can find your books if you like small town romance. I haven't gotten to any of the romantic parts yet. Is it sweet or is it something that I'm going to blush if someone's in the car with me and is being,
No, and this is rather ironic. I'm sorry, this podcast is going way longer than you probably ever
I'm
intended.
sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so I wrote Let the Games Begin, and it was clean. And at that time, I call it the Chesty Man books. Chesty Men had taken over Amazon. And I'm like, you know what? And there are actually books that show you how to write that Chesty Man stuff. And I'm like, I could do that. I could do that. And when we had just moved here, and so we would have lunch at the senior center with my husband's parents' friends. Okay. And
Okay.
and they came to the table with their stories, and anybody that lives in a small town knows everybody has a story. We don't go anywhere anytime soon, because if you see somebody, you're hearing a story. And
Yeah.
so I would bring my novel to the table, and oh, Eric, and Eric was not a very good boyfriend in the beginning. He just couldn't get it. He thought because he had money that was enough. And Eric did this. I don't know how he's going to get out of trouble. Oh, Gina showed Eric she did this, and they would just, and they looked forward to the stories from the book, right? Eric and Gina were at the table with us. Well, the pastor was there one day, and he's like, "This book sounds so good. I think I'm going to read it."
Oh no.
I was like, delete, 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 delete.
Oh
Cut
yeah,
my
that could
word
be
count down.
embarrassing.
Well, then fast forward, everybody in the town knows I write. It's just a given, and they see me. Like if I get a story idea, I have, like, my phone has Scrivener, my iPad has Scrivener, my notepad, I will write. And I have some YouTube videos where I actually recorded myself reading short stories.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I'm the elementary school librarian up here. And so I'm teaching the elementary kids how to do podcasts, and they're reading books. And one of the kids is all proud of himself, and he goes, "I've watched your YouTube videos."
Oh
It's like,
no.
oh, thank you, Lord. They were crying. Thank you. So to
Oh, you
anybody
know, it'd been
listening,
funnier if he'd said, "Mommy watches your YouTube videos."
so now I'm like, I'm going to preface every story. Okay, if you're one of my students, the characters are going home from their date at 8, and they're hugging goodbye.
Oh, that was one thing that you did up in Chicago. Mary and I were roommates. You were
Mhm.
reading stories to your students that you were
Yes,
recording on video for, on audio for them,
yes.
bedtime stories, right?
No, actually, what I was doing is, um, for that in particular, that was in Ivan Doig's story, and it was a small town story. And like when I read, I can look at the page and I could read the whole page all at once. So I read really quickly. And a lot of people read line by line by line. Well, there are some people that read word, 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 word. Well, they and,
With their lips moving and everything. Yeah.
and it's hard for them to understand. They lose it because I'm looking at the big picture, they're looking at the line. And and reading is a social thing. Story is a social thing. So like as I was recording, I had some students and they didn't like the story. It was like the maturity level was above them. I thought it was hoot. And when I was in the library, I would read with them and we would have these great discussions about what was going on in the book. Well, then I went to Chicago and they were like, we have the test on Wednesday and you're going to be gone till Tuesday. And we got 6 chapters. So, so I recorded the book. And like, as you remember, I would talk about it
Yeah.
as we were going. And I came back and I was back on Tuesday, and then we had our final discussion. So they went into this reading experience as reading being something more social as opposed to being something where they had to pass a test. And
I
they
like
still have
that.
to pass the
Yeah.
test.
Yeah, I like that. And it gets kids excited about it.
Hmm.
And maybe they'll go on and they will read by themselves then, which is
Hmm.
great. I mean, that's the big point behind reading to your kids. If you have kids, read
Hmm.
to them. My daughter, when she was little, she had a girl down the street come spend the night with us. And at bedtime, I came into her room with a pile of books. And she said, the girl's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Doesn't your mom read bedtime stories to you?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Pick out a bunch of books." I had her go to Cody's bookshelf and she picked out about 10, 15 books and took them home. And I said, "Tell your mom to read them to you." So, so
Tell his mom.
yeah. So I thought, even if you work hard, you have 10 minutes to read a story to your child at the end of the night. Reading is so important. It makes the kids so much smarter. It helps with
Mhm,
their social skills. I used to be a kindergarten assistant,
mhm,
and the kid, you knew which kids weren't read to at night. You just knew. reading is so important.
Mhm.
So before I lecture anybody else, I probably should let you go.
Okay.
I've kept you so long. I'm so sorry. I'll probably might break this into 2 parts because I think we talked about an hour. Um,
Okay.
and the podcasts are usually between 20 and 35 minutes, though lately the last couple have been long. I'm sorry, people. I got people. Let me know if everybody, if you like the podcast longer or shorter, you got to let me know in the show notes, or I'll do whatever the hell I want. So thank you for coming along and joining me today, Merri. It was fun. It was nice to see you again. Are you going to the conference in Nashville next year?
Yes.
Me too. Oh, that's right, because we signed up like as it was being announced.
Yes. I was like, let me get to my PayPal.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
right.
I will be in Nashville.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So I will let you go, and I will have all the links in the show notes. Check out her books. They are fun. They are small town romance, small town life. If you're from a small town, you will totally relate. If you're not from a small town, you'll go, oh my God, but you'll like it. So thanks a lot. I will talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Merri. All of her links are in the show notes. Also, my blog for Key West that I chatted about just a little bit. I may have cut that part out. I don't remember now. I got a little too chatty and I cut a big section where it was just me talking. So, but if I did talk about my blog that I did in Key West, the link is twistofkeylime.blogspot.com. I'll have it down in the links. It's worth checking out just for the photos of Fantasy Fest. There's some not safe for work ones in there, so don't, if you're at work, don't open it at work. Go home to look at it. But there's some crazy, crazy stuff that happened during Fantasy Fest, and my friend Lee and I. Lee is a professional photographer, so we went around together and photographed at least one of the years. I did one of the years by myself, and it just wasn't as fun. So that's in there. But check out Merri's books. They're good. And if you like small town romance, you will not be disappointed. So check her out. Next week on the show, if I don't have to go out of town again, I will be reading from my book, 4 Bullets and a Ghost. That is the series that I'm writing in addition to the June Nash Misadventure series. And that I'm slowly working on that. The chapters that I've been reading are not edited yet, so things may change in them, but I've had fun, and they're actually I get a lot of people downloading them, so I guess somebody's interested. So I will be reading chapter 9, and if you go back and just scroll, you will find chapters 1 through 8 there. I think there were 4 or 5 recordings I did. A couple times I did chapters, more than one chapter. So you can go back and listen to those to get ready for chapter 9, or you can just listen to chapter 9, whatever. So I don't think there's anything else that I really want to talk about this week. I will see you next week. And in the meantime, go read a good book.